housekeeping. I'm sure you've all heard it before. But first of all, if the fire alarm rings, it's not a test. It is an indication there could be a fire. So please go out slowly or fast with the way you come in. Please switch your mobile devices to silent. The proceedings are being recorded. Speakers will have 3 minutes. After that, you'll hear a tone and be asked to wind up. If you don't, well, it gets nastier. This is the only opportunity for the public to speak, so please don't interrupt the rest of the debate. And during the meeting, you'll see officers talking to each other. It looks like it's bad manners, but they're talking to try and get an answer for what you're actually, for the point you're making. So it's not bad manners. Right, members, update on performance. At the moment, 77 out of 92 applications have been determined on time, which is 84%. It needs to be above 40%, and apparently that's soon increasing to 50%. The major appeals are 5 of 90, which is 6%. So 6 major appeals are pending, and that needs to be below 20%. By the way, there's a bit of a warning. The government announced last week that special measures will soon also include the minor applications being determined on time. At the moment we get judged on majors, but they'll be determining on minors soon, so we await. Right, apologies for absence, please.
Apologies received from Councillor Daniel Cribbin, Chair.
Thank you. There's no more. Any figures to follow out? Right, members' interests. Disclosable interests. No? Don't forget, if you feel you have some as you go along. Sorry, Councillor Evans.
So, application DA 2015-0457. I know one of the speakers.
Okay. Thank you.
I know one of the speakers as well. I think that was very relevant. I know one of the speakers as well.
I don't think it matters if you know one, but I think you may be related to one. I think it would be better to not to say you know, but you're related to one of the speakers. Thank you, Councillor Evans. Councillor Evans Swift.
Yes, for the application in Pittsford 0268. The applicant is a friend of a friend, and she asked me for advice on to address the committee, but in general, not in particular for our application.
Okay, thank you. Any more? Right, if not, party whipping arrangements.
No.
Alright, members of the public, planning committee members don't get together and decide how they're going to vote together beforehand. It's purely made on decisions for information on the evening. Right, so we now announce any applications which have been withdrawn. There's none withdrawn, but 2 have been delegated. If you look at 0344, which is an application at Quick, that is now a delegated approval. The County Council suggested something that in our opinion was not necessary. It was something very, very minor, and it was not required. It's at the end of the cul-de-sac. And also the other one is at Solby, which is 0435. Again, a delegated approval. Again, the County Council want what's it called? A swept park condition put in on it. So it's a delegated approval as long as the swept park condition is put on, and it allows buses and coaches to get in the gateway safely. So that's a delegated approval. So the meeting shouldn't last as long as you thought it was going to. Right, the first application is 0183 and is in Longbury.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application for the construction of 13 dwellings on the site of the former Catholic Church of Station Road in Long Buckby. 40% of the dwellings will be affordable. 30% of the land is classed as brownfield or previously developed land. The rest is considered to be underdeveloped. The site is strictly outside the established confines of the village, where normally planning permission would not be granted. Members will be aware of the outline planning permission that has been granted at appeal to the south of the application site for residential development. Therefore, although technically outside the confines, the site will be surrounded by residential development. This is a material consideration in assessing the planning application. The application proposal has been designed as a cul-de-sac, similar to properties to the north along Watson Road. Therefore, the proposal is considered to be in keeping with the character and appearance of the locality. The proposed dwellings will be in excess of 30 metres away from the rear elevations of the properties in Watson Road. These properties are also located on a higher level than the application site. It is therefore considered that the application will not result in any detrimental impact on residential amenity. It is noted that concern has been expressed regarding highway safety. Although the Highway Authority have raised some issues, they are content and do not raise any highway objections to the proposal. Therefore, it will not result in any detrimental impact on highway safety. The proposal is therefore recommended for approval, subject to the completion of Section 106. Members' attention is drawn to the late representations and the request for the land and the local highway authority in respect to the travel vouchers, which can be accommodated as part of the Section 106. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We have two speakers. Mr. Lee, who is against the application.
Right, thank you. Let me speak on behalf of the affected Watson Road residents. It was clear that once the major planning application to the east side of Station Road was approved, St Joseph's Church Paddock would likely become an infill development. And whilst Watson Road residents are not against this development as such, we have to object to the design of this application on a number of grounds. Point 1. 13 houses on such a small area seems to be an excessive volume and an overdevelopment of the area. Developers are trying to maximise their profit over quality living space, with many buildings right up to the boundaries of Watson Road properties. Carpeters Lane development plot in Non-Buckby has a larger acreage, but approved planning for only 5 houses. Daventry District Council can now demonstrate, going forward, that it has a 5-year land bank and an adopted local plan. Given the volume of housing applications in the village already, we should not be looking to solely maximise property density, but aiming to create a harmonious living environment for all. Point 2. This density and design leads to an invasion of privacy for many of the Watson Road properties and the properties scheduled for the major east side development. Number 4 Watson Road will have the rear elevation of a property directly parallel to the house. There will be at least 5 windows overlooking the garden and directly into the Watson Road property, denying any privacy at all. This development, point 3, this development will require yet another busy access onto Station Road, which is likely to become the fourth onto this busy road below Lyons Summit. This will cause more risk to pedestrian and road user safety, with multiple trips for the likely 26 cars based on this development every day. Point 4. The development extends to the boundary of the land right beside the footpath on Station Hill, whereas all other developments on Station Road are set back. Point 5. It would be much more sympathetic to allow single-storey dwellings on the north side of the development due to the close proximity of the Watson Road properties. Point 6. Following the adoption of the joint core strategy, there is now an added emphasis on developers to engage with the local community on the proposed development. Not once were the neighbours contacted by the owners or the developers of this land. So, they're all the points. The Parish Council recently objected to this development for similar reasons. So I call on Daventry District Council to support the impacted residents and recommend that this application be rejected in favour of development more considerate and sympathetic to the existing village inhabitants. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Terry, the agent. I hope I've got your pronunciation right.
Terry, yeah, close.
Yeah.
Good evening, Chairman and Councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm here to speak on behalf of my client's Parrot Developments in the Diocese of Northampton regarding the proposed development on land or Station Road, Long-Buckby. The proposal is for the demolition of the existing building and the construction of 13 dwellings. A vacant single-storey building occupies the site. Part of the site is considered previously developed brownfield land, and per the NPPF there is a presumption in favour of redevelopment. Additionally, in the context of the ongoing and proposed consented developments to the west and south of the site, we believe development on this infill site should be supported. Currently, the rear boundaries and gardens belonging to houses fronting Watson Road are exposed and vulnerable, and the site is at risk of antisocial behaviour. A pre-application inquiry was submitted and the subsequent planning and highways advice received was used to inform the design of the scheme. The proposal has been designed to create active street frontages to increase natural surveillance and security and provide definition of public and private spaces. As requested in the pre-app feedback, properties have been arranged to front on Station Road and due to the wide verge are set back at least 7 metres from the road edge. A speed survey was performed and the results deemed acceptable by the highways officer. These results offer a more up-to-date reflection of the current conditions on Station Road at the proposed site access than those obtained by the Parish Council. Following the consultation period, a Stage 1 safety audit and minor revisions to the layout were requested by the highways officer. These have been submitted and deemed acceptable. The existing properties north of the site on Watson Road are located in excess of 30 metres away from any development and are at a slightly higher level than the proposed dwellings. We note that there are only 4 proposed dwellings located adjacent to the northern boundary. Considering the fall in levels and the separation between the existing and proposed dwellings, we believe the proposed relationship is acceptable. The adopted West Northampton Joint Core Strategy Policy H2 requires that 40% of the development is provided as affordable dwellings, of which this proposal complies with by providing 5 dwellings. The proposal provides a selection of 2, 3 and 4 bed family homes and achieves adequate levels of parking, sufficient distances between properties and allows for areas of landscaping. We believe the proposal makes efficient use of the site at a density of 31 dwellings per hectare and should not be considered over-development of the site. The proposal is in a sustainable location within close proximity to public transport and village facilities and services. Throughout the design process, we have maintained a high level of communication with the local planning authority and the local highways department. Considering the above and the recommendation for approval by the case officer, we ask the committee to approve the proposal.
Thank you, sir. Right. Councillor Miller, you're going to speak first. You've got 2 members of the planning committee who want to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to speak as the local ward member for Long Buckby, one of the local ward members. I've been obviously contacted by a number of residents in Long Buckby who are opposed to this application, so I'm just going to make representations on their behalf this evening. Long Buckby actually feels under siege, Chairman, by the number of planning applications already agreed there and also coming in. There's more in the pipeline, as you're aware. So I think there's always a sensitivity around new applications outside the village confines. I think it's disappointing if the gentleman who spoke against the application is right in saying that there's no consultation between the developer or the landowner about this application before it comes to this stage. So I think it's always important to engage with local communities on applications that can be deemed to be a bit controversial, as this one is outside the village confines. I think the first speaker who spoke against obviously covered a number of points. The one I'd like to make obviously is about the size. 13 homes on this particular site is seen by many as a very over-development of that particular site, Chair, and I think that's something the committee should take account of. And also note the parish council concerns which are in the committee report. I think density and design is important in a village like Long Buckby. There's a lot of building going on in this area, and there's 2 large developments taking place at the moment. One has started, obviously, and one is about to start. The great news on the second one is because we're going to get a car park to the station, which might alleviate some of the traffic issues around on that area on the road, because a lot of cars park on the road at the moment because there's not enough capacity in the existing station car park. But coming back to this one, the residents of Watson Road are concerned about the density. They are concerned about access on the road, and it's on the brow of the hill, and I think it's again something members want to take account of. And obviously it was a suggestion maybe single-storey dwellings might have been more suitable for this particular site, but I said the applicant has to put forward what they wish to put forward. So bear in mind we've got all these homes coming into Long Buckby. I'd like committee members to consider very carefully whether there is an issue about overdevelopment of the site. And I, on behalf of the residents who have been contacting me, obviously they're objecting to this application on the grounds of overdevelopment, on the issue of highways and another access onto Station Road. And I'd be grateful if the committee could take into account these factors when determining this application this evening, Chairman. And obviously hope they can see a way of refusing this on behalf of the residents who have major concerns about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Chairman. As one of the other ward members and a member of the planning committee, obviously lots of people in the village sent me emails to turn down Watson Road, but obviously my position, I didn't reply. I just thought that they would hear, if they turned up, they would hear my views tonight. Firstly, I'd like to say, for a start, it's a shame that the Catholic Church is being knocked down it's been knocked down, a church. Gosh, I've just for 13 dwellings. You know, I know that it didn't have lots of people going there, a big congregation or anything, but a church is being knocked down. I can't believe that nobody's even mentioned the church. But anyway, I agree with everything that the first speaker said. I agree with everything Councillor Miller said. I agree with what the parish council have said. But I'm sorry, sir, the second gentleman, you know, some of the comments you made, I heard words antisocial behaviour about the that will happen around that area. I'm afraid I don't think you know where we're on about in Longbuckby or what Longbuckby is like if you think that will happen there. Just because some other houses are being built there. So I would like to make that point. That is, you know, I'm really sorry, but that's not the right area or what you're on about. You can't even think, or you couldn't even predict that there's going to be antisocial behaviour there just because of the houses. But anyway, I feel very, very sorry for the residents of Watson Road and the residents of Longbuckby. Everybody in the village just can't believe that we just keep getting planning applications thrown at us. Everybody wants to build houses there. Why? What's wrong with other villages? Why Longbuckby? There was just been going on about the bypass. What about nearer there? Why Longbuckby? I just don't get it. It was on 41. I grew up in that village. And I knew every single person in that village, and now I walk out. I mean, there's people over there. Yeah, I don't even know a few of them. I've never even seen them. Now that's awful, and it's getting bigger. We've got two that have been gone ahead on appeal. One's already started, and then the other one will be starting shortly over the road. We haven't got the infrastructure for them, you know. I don't get it. I do feel very, very, very sorry for you. Especially about the houses are going to go straight up to the boundaries of the residents in Watson Road. They will be overlooked. I've been racking my brains going through everything, and you know, I will definitely, no way will I be voting for this. No way at all. I think it's awful. Longbuckby's had enough. I don't, just because the other developments are going ahead, I don't see why this should be infill, which is what it is. I don't see why, and if it is, why can't they be single story buildings nearer to Watson Road? Anyway, I definitely won't be voting for it, and I'm certainly not happy. I'm along with all the residents of Watson Road as well. I'd like to hear what everybody else says as well, please.
Thank you, Councillor Osborne. This is one of the occasions when it's in the chairman's board that the chairman speaks. The normal protocol is you don't get involved in other person's application, except asked him first.
Speak up, please, Chairman.
Sorry?
Speak up.
Sorry, I will try and speak up, daughter. I too am quite amazed of this planning application. They haven't been around, a lot of these people, when we've had a bad winter. Anybody that comes through Longbuckby in a bad winter will hit the top of Station Hill, and if they try and brake, they won't stop until they get to the bottom, because they'll be going sideways all the way down the hill. That's common. I've lived there all my life as well. So I cannot believe that within about 75 yards there are 4 entrances now on the left. That is one to this proposed site, another one to the larger one down on the left, to the 100 house site, another one to the 300 car park, and at the moment another one to the existing station car park. In fact, there could be 5 if you class the one that goes to the portico, all within about 75 yards on the left. These are the ones you'd have a jog stopping in the ice. On the right there are 2 turnings, and there's going to be a 2-cone crossing halfway down the hill as well. I cannot believe that the County Council made the comments they did and consider it to be perfectly safe. And I most certainly will not be voting for the application either. Right, members. Councillor Irving Swift.
Chairman, could I ask some clarification? Because since unfortunately we lost on appeal the site next to the station, now if this tie is refused and it goes into appeal, will the applicant argue that the confine of the village concept has been reduced due to the fact of the new development? And also one of the applicants say that 31 dwelling per hectare is overdeveloped. Can we also, if we go against officer advice, is that a valid point? So I would like clarification of those 2 points, please.
Okay.
I'll deal with the first one if I may, and I'll let Fran do the second one. It's a limited development village, so the confines of the village are defined within the Daventry district local. So that doesn't change, unlike a restricted infill village where they aren't defined.
Okay.
But it's also, for you, Chairman, material consideration that this area shown on the right has been permitted. So although in technical terms it's outside the confines of the village, it's also a fact that it is infill, which is
just
into account.
Just if I understand correctly, just 40% of the site is brownfield, the rest is not.
30% is brownfield, and about 70% is not brownfield.
Could you clarify the second point, please?
The second point, one of the gentlemen who opposed this application said that 31 dwelling per hectare is considered as overdevelopment. What I thought that was in our range, in our strategic planning, is that?
Well, you've got to have a look at the character of the area for one. If you can look sort of Watson Road, yes, potentially you can argue that they're on a lower density than other properties in Non-Buckby, such as off the Station Road itself. If you just look at the opposite side of the road, sort of in sort of Rock Hill Road area, you can see it's very densely populated. I do not think it is overdevelopment of the site. It is in keeping with sort of the overall character. Yes, any modern estate is smaller garden area, and it's very similar pretty much to the new homes which are going up across the road. So in a sense, that's the character. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I think we should go with the officer's advice for approval because, I mean, the question's been asked, why are they always targeted, for these developments? Well, the obvious answer is the infrastructure's already there. You've got the A5 nearby, you've got the M1, you've got a station. That's far more than we have in Daventry. So I can't see any reason why we can refuse it. On any planning grounds, there's been a lot of talk about highway safety, yet highways really don't have any objection as such. And then, about cars going down the hill when it's icy and all sort of comments have been made. Well, there's no logic reason why, and as the officer said, that this, to me, doesn't look like an overfill on that sort of land. I've seen more developments but on a smaller area than we've got in front of us today. So I have to go along with the officer's advice for approval.
Thank you, Councillor Carr. Any other comments?
Yeah.
That is a proposal, then, is it, Councillor?
It is, yes.
Right, do you have a second? Councillor Evans. Would you like to speak as well?
Only basically to go along with what Councillor Carr says. I don't think it is overdevelopment. I think it's laid out quite nice. There seems to be plenty of room between the houses. We're getting our affordable house in there. It's a small infill. Looking at the gardens on Watson Road, Watson Close.
Watson Road.
Watson Road. They look quite long gardens. I don't think there'll be any overlooking. I'm quite happy to second it.
Thank you. Councillor Osborne again.
Thank you. I'd just like to point out that infrastructure is to do with, it might well do with the A5, the road that is near, like the A5, the motorway and everything. The infrastructure, Councillor Carr, is all to do about what's already in the village at the time, parking, shops, whether the doctors have got places, schools have got places, and actually, Councillor Carr, it's been proven that the infrastructure isn't there. So it has been proven, even for the two developments that went on appeal. So I just thought I'd point that out to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Paul?
Thank you, Chairman. I've total empathy with Non-Buckby, its residents. However, we've foul of planning law. And, I've said in this chamber before, there is no such thing as justice in this world, there is but only law. I've gone through the application, I've looked at the plans. I cannot hang my hat on a planning reason for refusal, and that's where the problem lies, Chairman. If there could be a planning reason that could stand up in a court of appeal, then perhaps we could proceed. But I honestly can't see a planning reason, so I will have to go with officer's advice.
Thank you. Councillor Irving-Swift.
We were told that despite the fact that 30% is brown side, it's still outside of the confine of the village, because that is what our lawyer has clarified. So if we start to agree that building outside of the confine of the village is fine in infill, restricting infill villages, we are going to be on a sticky wicket.
Well, there are about 100 houses just going below this.
Yeah, but that was before we had.
Yes, but well, it still will be part of the village then. Anyway, it'll be different.
According to the advice that our lawyer has given, the confine of the village was the confine of the village. The new development that was lost on appeal is outside of the confine of the village.
But it's still a material consideration that it's being developed. So
basically, now we could have a planning reason outside of the confine of the village that could be tested. Or we said, okay, that is not anymore outside of the confine of the village, and I cannot see another reason. The only reason I could see is outside of the confine of the village. Otherwise, all the other reasons will be quite weak and we will lose on appeal. That's all.
Thank you.
Through you, Chairman, what the Act requires the local planning authority to do is to make decisions in accordance with the development plan unless material consideration indicates otherwise. In this particular case, the decision of the appeal is a material consideration, and it's a decision which would weigh in favour of this particular application guidelines. So I feel that members should take that into consideration in determining this application.
And also the policy also does say not normally, so it doesn't say strictly no, it says not normally.
Okay, Councillor Chandler.
Thank you, Chairman. I also was going to point those two points out, but the third point is that the local plan to which you're referring dates from a very long time ago, would be regarded as considerably out of date from the point of view of the amount of weight that could be given to its effect, I fear, especially with the advice that we're given that we can't use as an excuse the fact that we haven't finished developing our Part 2 settlements and countryside local plan, because the Minister has said that if we haven't finished that, then he's going to take over the plan and write it for us.
I really disagree with Councillor Chandler, but perhaps on this occasion I will. It is still part of the development plan, and while of course we're grateful in Daventry for all help we get, and if the Secretary of State's going to write our plan for us, I'm sure we'll offer him all the support we can. But nevertheless, that process is underway. In the meantime, the safe policies of the 1997 plan do remain part of the development plan, and the test is not how old they are, and I'm increasingly grateful that that is the test. It is the test is how much they are in conformity with the NPPF, and I'd say policies have regularly been considered to be in conformity with the NPPF.
Okay. Right. We have a proposal that the application be approved, which has been seconded. All those in agreement, please show. Right, those against.
Chairman, can I have it noted, please, that I voted against it, please?
We can record that, can't we? Yes. Okay. Thank you. The application is approved. Right, the next application is West Hadley, 0241.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a former garage site within the established confines of West Haddon. The site is currently accessed off a cul-de-sac off Elizabeth Road. This is for the construction of 3 terrace properties. A previous scheme included 4 houses, but this scheme was withdrawn. Bungalows are located to the north and east. The boundary treatment to the bungalows to the east is now an approximately 2-metre high fence. In the pictures you might see a chain link, but this is now being replaced with a 2-metre high fence. It is considered that there is sufficient distances between the properties not to result in a detrimental impact on the amenities of the adjoining neighbours through loss of life or privacy. The site is highlighted as a development site in the neighbourhood plan, as is the land behind to the west. This plan is due to be examined tomorrow. The parish, although do not object in principle to the development on the site, they are concerned about the access to the other site, which is also allocated in the neighbourhood plan. The proposed developments will not prevent access onto the adjoining site from this development, as it would have to be subject to a different application, and it would have to gain consent from the landowner and potentially revise the location of it to car parking spaces. Concern has been raised also regarding the access to meters and delivery of oil. These are not planning issues, as planning does not override any other legal restriction that may prevent the development from occurring, such as rights of access over land. The application is therefore recommended approval with the inclusion of a condition relating to the Environmental Health Officer's comments in the consultation reply. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We have 2 speakers. Mrs. Heaton, who's against the application?
Yes, that's myself. I've just got a few brief points to make. None of the plans that are on the website actually include our property. Our property was only built a year ago. So from these plans here, you can't see our property at all. So although you say there's the 45-degree rule and it doesn't impinge our property likewise, I don't know how you can say that when our property isn't actually listed on any of your drawings there that I can see. The land that we're talking about is some 8 foot higher than the land our property is built on. So the dwellings have been planned to come right up to our side fence. Therefore, I do feel that it would be imposing on our property to have them built so close to us. In my letter of objection to the council, I did make a specific request that consideration was given for access to emergency services. We wouldn't get a fire engine or an ambulance up our driveway, which is long and narrow. So therefore, the only way of getting these to our property is through that car park. And I want to be clear what happened if there was an emergency and we needed emergency services to come to our property. And finally, you say that access for our oil tank isn't an issue, which I agree with. However, you know, we consulted a bundle of specialists when we bought the house, and they include solicitors, you get local searches, the builder himself, and we've ended up with a property whereby we can't service our own oil tank through our own right of way. However, that has happened. But the plans were agreed by you less than 2 years ago. So I do feel it is a consideration that you're putting us in this position by blocking off this land.
Thank you. Do we know which is this lady's property?
Yes, it's in sort of the area with the green area.
Yeah, we're in the middle of that, and all those trees there have preservation orders on them.
The application was actually approved a long time ago against officers' advice. However, the applicant or the owner of the site at the time did commence development, so it has taken a while for it to actually be built. We do not know why it has not been included with the ordnance survey. I have spoken with our ordnance survey department, and they're waiting for an update, and they're aware if it does not come on the update, they will notify. I know sometimes it does take a while for new properties to get on. It is very rare, to be honest, but having sort of looked at the plans, which have been approved about 9 years ago, and calculated on the plan whereabouts the new properties were going, I was able to assess the 45-degree raw angle, even though the plans might, or the building might not be shown on these drawings. Consideration was had to the impact on that property.
Thank you. Next speaker is Mrs. Baldwin, the Parish Council.
Mr. Chairman, Councillors, the Parish Council doesn't object to this planning application in principle, which is long overdue, and we quite concerned about the siting of the last 2 garages, which do block quite a large plot at the top of Crown Lane, which is at this moment in time. We pointed that out, by the way, when we replied to your planning application in the first place. The reason for this is because where the garages are proposed is a site on which there is at the moment a lapsed planning application for 2 dwellings, and there's an access at Victoria Close which somebody objected to, that it wasn't wide enough, and the only other access is out through Elizabeth Road. At the moment, that site is earmarked on our neighbourhood plan for proposed development, and that is going before the examiner in the village hall tomorrow, is our neighbourhood plan. The Parish Council put forward that the proposed site for the N2 garages could be sited to the rear of number 46 Elizabeth Road, which is also owned by Daventry District Housing, and would still leave the said property with a large rear garden if it was levelled off with the rest of the road. It's not showing on your drawing, I don't think. Is it? Right, fair enough. So we would ask councillors to consider putting a condition on this by some means or other to allow that access to remain open. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Can I just say that the access, by the way, the house the lady was talking about is off Crown Lane, not off Elizabeth Road.
Okay, thank you. You were expressing surprise at it had a fully conditioned.
I think our legal officer will be able to put it better than me about the potential for a condition.
It's very difficult to do this, to put a condition on your planning terms when nothing's been agreed with the landowners. And my understanding is that there is no agreement with the landowners, and there is no application coming forward for the site that's identified in the emerging West Ham neighbourhood development plan. And while that may well come through once the neighbourhood development plan is adopted for West Ham, nevertheless there is no application there for it. So it's very difficult for us to determine, or for you, the members, to determine this application on the basis of consideration of an application that doesn't exist on a neighbourhood development plan that's still to be finally adopted. So I appreciate it's at a fairly advanced stage, but it's still draft, and there is no application other than this one before members, and this must be considered on its merits, not on the merits of something that doesn't exist next door.
Thank you. Local members. I think Councillor Miller's going first.
Thank you much indeed, Chairman. Again, thank you for allowing me to speak as a member of Non-Buckby Ward, which obviously encompasses West Haddon, a village I represented since 1999. I am aware of the issues that Pat Baldwin, the Parish Council Chairman, has raised there about the access. Neighbourhood plans, all members will know neighbourhood plans have been very welcome, and West Haddon in particular has had a very good process where the whole village has been engaged in that process and responded to consultations. And they've identified a site in the village which obviously requires this access entrance, and I think it's a real shame if we can't find a way forward on this one in terms of making sure when the plan is going to examination tomorrow that doesn't happen at some stage. I'm very disappointed the applicants, DDH in this case, have not responded to the plan. I don't know if they're engaged in the neighbourhood plan process, but this site actually has been on the cards for many, many years as it's been developed for affordable housing, and that's welcome in the village because we require that in the village. But I think it's disappointing that DDH haven't engaged in that process. And I'd like to think if this application is approved tonight, that steps will be made to ensure that DDH can come back with an answer, because I think I would fully support the Parish Council's efforts and the Neighbourhood Plan Group's efforts to ensure that the site they've identified, which has been supported by, I understand, the majority of the villagers, residents, can go ahead at some stage. I understand the difficulties of mitigation and trying to move spaces elsewhere. I'd just like to think, Chairman, that if the committee are minded to approve this tonight, that they would actually, we can take steps to try and find a way around that outstanding issue. I think it's important the neighbourhood plan to listen to you, so that's my point, Chairman. If villages go to the extent that West Haddon have in terms of the huge consultation process and the great deal of responses they had, I think it's important that's taken into account. But this application has been supported by the Parish Council. I support it. For many years, this has been on the cards for many, many years, and nothing happened. And I'm delighted that this once derelict site is now going to be engaged for some housing, which I think everyone in the village welcomes. So I'm not sure there's a way around this difficulty, but I hope there can be, if the application is approved tonight, then maybe steps can be done to engage with the applicants. I accept the fact they have the right to actually agree or not agree the access to this new piece of land the Neighbourhood Plan Group have identified. I just hope common sense will prevail and a way forward can be found. So in principle, Chairman, I support the application, but I just have a concern about this access issue, which I appreciate the Planning Committee can't do much about. But I'd just like it noted that I hope steps can be taken, if it is approved tonight, that a way forward can be found. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. Councillor Osborne.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree. Again, I agree with 100% everything what Councillor Miller's just said, and Mrs. Baldwin from the Parish Council. It's like the last one. It's very difficult. Because I do, again, I do in principle agree with it. Like I say, it's been like that for a long time, so it would be nice for it to, something to happen and it to be done. But, like Councillor Mayor said, it's the access. We can't do anything about the access, and there's no way we can get it. There's no way that there's a planning reason for it. So it's a shame that this wasn't all done if the neighbourhood development plan and everything wasn't done before all this, and maybe it could be part of it. But so yeah, I mean, I'd like to hear what other members say, but yeah, that's all I can say really. Is I'm worried about the site entrance, and that's it.
Thank you, Catherine.
In regards to sort of the potential future access to the land behind, obviously that is potentially subject to another planning application. As you can see, there's car parking spaces, they're not garaging, so potentially they could in future gain access to the land behind if the landowner is agreeable to that. But it's something which is not before us tonight, and obviously we've got to decide the application on its own merits. Yes, the land is included within the neighbourhood plan, so therefore that it's also within the confines, established confines, as it is a limited development village as well. But I can't see why there can't be potentially a solution for those car parking spaces to be either allocated on site, which DDH own, or potentially the adjoining landowner. But that's again outside the planning agreement.
Could I ask? Sorry, Chairman. Could I ask? Part of that are them trees at the back like that? The first speaker, the lady said that they've got tree preservation order on them. Is that right or not? Is that wrong? No, right. Okay.
Further down.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
The third member is me again. As it's been said already, there's nothing wrong with the planning application as it stands. That's the annoying thing, because you can't judge the other one. They're a West Ham, they've gone through their system, they've designated a site there as a site that could be built on. But yet, DDH, who are a housing association, haven't spoken to the landowner. If I'd been DDH, the applicant, I would have spoken to the landowner of the other site and got something in going before this came to committee, and I wouldn't have two separate things like this. There's nothing wrong with the application as it is in planning terms, I agree, but morally and neighbourhood plan-wise there is something wrong, and a lot of members know that have been struggling to get their neighbourhood plans through. There is something wrong with it. They do all the work and they're not going to get it, or possibly not going to get it. But I agree, it's not a planning issue. I can't find a reason to vote against it, but I certainly won't be voting for it, I can assure you. Right, I've got two members down. Councillor Frenchman first.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I echo your thoughts, and I'm very disappointed in the attitude of DDH and their lack of, or apparent lack of consultation. My main worry is actually that this decision will render the neighbourhood plan obsolete, because if they can't get access, then the village choice of development sites is actually not available then, unless there is alternative access, and I don't know that. What I would actually like to see happen is, and I agree with the Chair that there's not many or any grounds for really voting against it, but I think that this committee should write to DDH in the strongest terms, saying that we would expect better consultations with the neighbouring land holders and the parish council, so these problems aren't in front of us, that aren't a planning matter, and that they sort it out.
I agree with you completely. If that's a proposal that is done,
I will propose that.
Thank you. Councillor Shepard, make a comment.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. As I've mentioned already, just because there's two car parking spaces there at the moment doesn't mean that they can be alternative.
I realise that. But it also means that they can say there is parking spaces, we don't want to lose them.
But then again, obviously, it's also up to sort of potentially the West Ham Neighbourhood Plan Committee to actually approach DDH. Sometimes it's a two-way street in the sense potentially one party doesn't want to speak to another party. But yes, sometimes it is better for a joined-up thinking. However, we've got this application before us. We've got to decide on its planning merits. Potentially, as the Pat Baldwin, the parish chairman, did mention about another access off Victoria Close. Obviously, if that was to come to fruition, and potentially if Highways objected to it, but the parish council supported it, potentially we may have to come back to planning committee and let members decide whether that access was appropriate or not. But again, it's what ifs. We don't know that.
Appreciate that.
Thank you. I would just add really that every neighbourhood development plan is going to have a range of what ifs, because actually unless the parish council owned all the land that is identified for potential development, this is always going to be an issue.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Chair. Basically, I believe this access issue for somebody's private land is a complete red herring as far as this planning application is concerned. It's a ransom strip after all, and if he hasn't got access to his land, he hasn't got access to his land. That's another matter, nothing to do with us at the moment. But what does concern me is 2 bungalows which are actually off the private drive, which effectively is going to be widened. They have no other access. Can we have that slide up? These 2 bungalows, I think it's 44 and 46, I'm not sure, are actually served from this driveway. It isn't shown on the plan for some reason. That concerns me. Something has got to be done for those people. I noticed this morning when I visited the site that they leave their bins actually on that little driveway. And they don't appear to have anywhere else to leave them either. I don't know who lives there, no idea. But it needs looking at.
Thank you. Councillor Paul?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Totally agree with Councillor Frenchman. I think a letter should go to DDH, who at the end of the day are, I suppose, it's not-for-profit social landlord. DDH have, without a shadow of a doubt, missed the boat. The one thing they haven't done is had they worked with the parish council, there could have been a lot more affordable homes in that area. I do have concern that they say they're affordable homes, but are they homes for rent? Are they part ownership? Now, some people might say, well, you're picking hairs, you know, affordable or part ownership or for rent. Well, there is a big difference in a lot of cases. The planning, or if you look at the plans and you look at the parking spaces, all you have to do is to turn the 4 parking spaces to 90 degrees to what they are now, and that will then allow access to the so-called tract land. I don't agree that it's a ransom strip. It just means, you know, consultation. It doesn't have conflict with the local plan. I would strongly suggest, Chairman, that we agree officers of advice and approve the application.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. Councillor Pratchett.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I mean, I'm looking at the relevant planning history for this, and I was on the...
He made a proposal which...
So I'll beg your pardon, I missed that. You made a proposal, Councillor Paul, that the application be approved.
Yes, indeed, sir.
And you added the contact we write to DDH, asking them to get together with the landowner and parish council.
Certainly, in consultation with my colleague, Councillor Frenchman, I think a letter should go. In planning terms, and in planning speak to Daventry District Housing, I think they've done the local parish council a disservice, while themselves no doubt thinking that they've created a service that should be applauded by putting in 2 or 3 dwellings, which in actual fact is quite the reverse.
Thank you, Councillor Paul. That has been seconded, I am told, by Councillor Frenchman.
Yeah.
Right, I'll go back to Councillor Patchett. Sorry, Councillor Patchett, that was my fault.
Okay, no problem, Chairman. Yeah, I'm just looking at the relevant planning history, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this site doesn't actually have planning permission for development at all yet. It's been applied for several times, but it's been withdrawn, and it hasn't actually been approved or determined in any way. Now, the other thing that you have to bear in mind is that along that road they're all bungalows, along Elizabeth Road. And it was always, when I was parish councillor many years ago, the thought of the parish council then was that should continue around into that garage site, which was one of the reasons that the garages were knocked down in the first place, so that more bungalows could be provided in the village. Now, to my mind, the design of the proposed dwellings are not in keeping with the character and appearance of the locality of Elizabeth Road. And as such, I can't support this application, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Chan.
Proposition. Thank you, Chairman. I can support the application for all the reasons that others have stated. It is, I too was there earlier today. Again, I did that part quite frequently. The existing access to the land behind is very narrow, and it's a pity that more wasn't done to discuss the merits and otherwise of that proposal that is within the neighbourhood plan. But I will support the application, and I would, if you'll allow me, Chairman, like to take this opportunity of congratulating the West End Neighbourhood Development Plan Group. They are the first in the district to get as far as an examination, and I wish them well tomorrow.
They are a very, very good group, very dedicated, and they work very hard on behalf of the village. I can see the parish council chairman nodding as well. They most definitely do.
I think that fact should be minuted, Chairman.
Okay. Right, Marina, we're going to the vote now. The proposition is that the application be approved, but a letter be sent to DDH asking them to talk with the parish council and the landowner behind with a view to making the land behind developable as well. That's the proposition as I see it.
Yeah.
But also, in strong terms, Chairman, the fact that they haven't consulted with the parish council at all.
It might be better to ask them to rather than the other way around.
I agree with you.
Yes, maybe the parish could say that they supported that development of the site, but EPDH could go back to them and maybe tweak a bit the planning application. Maybe that is a letter that the parish could write.
We've got an application before which we've got to deal with that one. It may well be as a result of talking there could be another planning application, which we all hope, I think, will happen.
But I think the parish could write that letter. It might be welcomed by the DDH.
Thank you. You'd like to make a couple of points, Maria?
I was just going to clarify that the bungalows affected, and you mentioned earlier, I think Councillor Robertson, are in DDH ownership, DDH tenants in them, and I'm understanding that the occupants of those bungalows are aware of the side access improvements are going to be achieved by making changes to part of the land that they currently have. So they are engaged in that process. And what is being built will be built to rent by DDH because that is the only authorisation that organisation has at the moment. They can't. They do have aspirations to do more, which will be coming to council soon, but at this point in time, they build to rent on a social rent basis. They don't sell and they don't do shared ownership. But I think, Catherine, you wanted to comment about your access?
Yes, in the sense, I know Councillor Robertson made some sort of concerns about access to sort of the existing bungalows. They don't actually have any access of the existing access. They pretty much are accessed off the cul-de-sac. Yes, they can potentially park their cars, which was a consideration of the local highway authority in the garage site. But the highway authority, what they're proposing is acceptable on both pedestrian and highway grounds. Thank you, Chairman.
Right, we have a...
Just wanted to add just to what the officers said. That when I looked this morning, I couldn't see any other gate than gates that were actually on that little driveway to those bungalows.
It used to be a cul-de-sac. My grandmother and grandfather lived in one of those bungalows. It used to be a cul-de-sac with an entrance to a garage, to garages. They're very small bungalows. Didn't want a lot of noise in it. Partly, Councillor Patchett's right. They're very tiny bungalows, and you would expect probably something different in keeping. But nevertheless, we've got to look at all housing options. That's all I can say because that's what I know. I used to go there quite often. Right, we have a proposal that the application be approved subject to the various letters going to DDH stating what we've just said. It's been seconded. All those in agreement with that proposal, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. Those against? Right, So the application is approved, but subject to that letter going to DDH, which basically will say, talk with the parish council and the landowner. Okay?
Thank you.
The next application is in Pittsford 0268.
Thank you, Chair. The application relates to a two-storey detached dwelling in the Pittsford Conservation Area. You can see from the site location plan the dwelling itself is set well back from the public highway, with the main garden and driveway situated in the front of the dwelling. The area is enclosed and also overlooked by a two-storey elevation of the neighbouring property called Chase House, and enclosed in parts to the southwest by a rear elevation of the old forge. The small patio area sits to the rear of the dwelling, separating it from the rear boundary of that end. The application before us tonight has been subject to a significant amendment in a sincere attempt to address the concerns raised by the neighbours and the parish council. And the plans for consideration now propose an increase in the roof pitch from a 25 degree to 35 degree roof pitch, raising it from 7 metres to 8.3 metres to create accommodation in the roof space. Also proposes reinstating the two chimney stacks at the gable end of the main dwelling. As observed in the 2.5-storey side extension, which is set back and set down from the main dwelling, is proposed featuring obscure glazing to the first floor side windows and upper floor extensions to the rear, also obscure glazed windows are proposed. In terms of the concerns raised by the parish council and neighbours, there are three main areas. These relate to the impact on neighbouring properties, impact on the conservation area, and also the impact on the traffic. Firstly, addressing the impact on neighbours. There are some concerns raised regarding the impact on Thatch End, which is 8 Manor Road and faces towards the rear of the property. From this point of view, there are 3 first-floor windows proposed. However, 2 serve bathrooms and will be fully obscure glazed, and 1 serving the study will be obscure glazed and a restricted opening to a level of 1.7 metres from the internal floor level. Equally, impact on 2 Manor Road, proposed window which is considered to be overlooking set at an oblique angle, the side extension of 7.5 metres, and again obscure glazed. Regards to the impact on the old forge, the proposed side extension will be 6 metres from a blank rear elevation of the old forge, and first floor study windows on the side will look onto a blank wall of Chase House, where there are no existing windows at present. Overall, officers feel that there will be no loss of privacy to neighbours, nor overbearing impact as a result of conditions which are within the proposed recommendation. Regards to the impact on the conservation area, officers feel that the revised plan now proposes to add a more sympathetic character and appearance to the appearance of the existing dwelling and the conservation area, and consider the impact would now be acceptable. There were some concerns raised regarding the highways impact, and officers acknowledge that there will be some reduction in parking spaces as a result of this proposed side extension. However, there will still remain sufficient space to park 4 vehicles off the road, and as such, we do not feel that this will be a substantive reason for refusal. However, in regard to these considerations, officers feel that the proposal would be acceptable in terms of its impact on neighbouring properties, its impact on the conservation area, and also its impact on the highways, and consequently will recommend that this application be approved. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, John. 2 speakers. Mrs. Holliday.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillors, thank you for allowing me to speak. The parish council submitted their objections to the original application and the subsequent revision. The now additional concern being, although the conservation officer suggested repositioning of the front dormer windows, the revision shows their removal and replacement by roof-like windows to the rear, thereby adding to the loss of privacy and tranquility to Thatch End behind. The obscured windows to the rear, there's one, is part obscured. It should, if it's allowed, it should be fully obscured, and so the window at the side, because it is very, very overlooking 2 Manor Road. The PC would like to ask the committee to please arrange a site visit to appreciate the overbearing effect and loss of privacy and close proximity to the three smaller cottage properties to the side and rear in the conservation area before determining this application. It really is the only way you can appreciate the size of this development and the effect on the properties around it.
Thank you, Mrs. Solomon. The applicant, Mrs. Mitchell.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for allowing me to address the committee. Although I think the planning officer has made a clear case of the recommendations to approve this application, I'd like to add a few comments. Before starting this project, I took advice from the planning officer, and the plans were drawn up in accordance with the advice. And after the initial objections, the plans were revised again on the advice of the planning officer. And in line with the conservation officer's concerns, the original design was revised to remove the dormers to make the roof not so large. Gable end chimneys were reinstated, and the side extension was reduced to be subservient to the main house breaking at the roof line. With reference to some of the objections from the neighbours, the report states that the new window layout actually gives the neighbours to the side and the rear more privacy, because at the moment I have windows which overlook them, which I can open, which are fully glazed, not obscured at all, and the new layout actually gives them more privacy. The proposed extension to the side covers about 25 square metres. It's been criticised as being out of scale, but actually the plot is over 500 square metres, so 25 is a very small proportion of that. I think that it's not out of scale. It is sympathetic to and in keeping with the surrounding area, and it has followed Daventry District Council's own design guide for designing house extensions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Mitchell. Local member?
Thank you, Chair. I read the report, and in line with many of these sorts of applications, I didn't see much wrong with it. But then the parish council invited me to go and have a look, and I have to say that the impact of this work is not appreciated until you actually see the site. The building creates an overbearing impact, in my estimation, on the surrounding side, and does impact quite highly on the residential amenity of some of those people. You talk about parking, but if you notice on the picture that a lot of it is in tandem parking, because it fans out the parking space, so you actually end up with, the officer mentioned 4 cars. Yes, you could probably get 4 cars on there, but they'd never all get out, and you'd have to shuffle them about like a jigsaw puzzle to do so. I want to propose a site visit, please, Chair, because I think without looking at this, you actually have no idea of how large a bearing it will have on the neighbours. And if that is not acceptable, then I'd actually like to propose a refusal.
Site visits, as you know, Councillor Frenchman, are usually not left to the last minute to planning meeting, because they were used in the past as a well, if you don't approve something, we'll have a site visit which makes it an extra chance, if you like. So
never gave it a moment's thought. It was only after I spoke to the parish council invited me to have a look that I even considered it.
Okay. Well, you can make a proposal for a site visit. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Patchin. Well, you know the principle of that. If we do that, that means that many councillors can use the system as a way of getting a site visit at the last minute. Normally, site visits are asked for very early in an application. So that's what I warn you. It sets a precedent. Anyway, we'll vote on it.
Sorry, Chair, but each request would be looked at on its own merits, and I think to make a sweeping statement that encompasses all requests for site visits is a little disingenuous.
Over the years, site visits have been considered by the committee if they're what I call 12-hour site visits. Many of them, and I'm not saying yours, but many of them have been used to delay making the decision to in effect make it a bit longer before the dreaded decision may come or may not come. But anyway, you've made a proposal, it's been seconded. All those in favour, please show. Did you put your hand up, Councillor Paul?
Yeah.
Right, so that's 6. Those against? 1, 2, 3. So there will be a site visit.
Application deferred.
Yeah, application deferred.
Chairman, may I request that those that voted for the site visit actually attend the site visit?
I should be looking for that, and I should be making it if they don't. I'm sure.
So will I, Chairman. It's the reason I put my hand up.
Okay. Chancellor?
I think it would be clear, Chairman, that it wouldn't be appropriate for me to attempt to visit the site. I do know the site. I don't think I would be any better informed by an official visit.
We'll let you off then.
Thank you.
Councillor Irving's first.
Yes, Chairman. You say something that puzzle me somehow. You say that site visits are early in the planning application, but when can we ask for a site visit before we know that an application will go in front of planning or not? So what is the mechanism for us, Councillor, to ask for a site visit? That is my problem, because I didn't know we could ask for a site visit before we possibly go in front of the committee.
You could, well, that's the Constitution anyway.
Through you, Chairman, it's set out in the Constitution that a planning committee member may request a site visit, citing the planning reason. But it is in the interest of the planning committee, and it is certainly officers' goal to provide you with enough information so that it's not required. But if there's a major application or a controversial application, we would certainly consider arranging a site visit during the assessment period, as opposed to bringing it to committee first. So they are the exception, not the rule, because we try to use them only when we really need to.
Could we have, in that case, something in writing from the administration, so that all councillors are aware of that? That they
Of
can
the positions of site visits, yes, you can.
It is set out clearly in the Constitution.
We will get somebody to send you the paragraphs out that clearly says it, so that you will see it separately, okay? Councillor Carr.
Thanks, Chair, for quickly letting me come back on this issue. I was on planning, as you know, many years ago. I'm now recently back on planning, and we did have a lot of site visits at the time. But I have to agree with other councillors who are wishing for a site visit, because to me there was real eye-openers. When you actually get to a site, you can watch as many videos, pictures, read about an application, but until you actually get to a site, it can bring a entirely different picture. And I think, Chair, myself, that it's a shame that no longer exists, that option. If that's what you're saying, that it's in the way forward to go through on a site visit now.
I understand what you're saying, Councillor Carr, but it's us, the members, that made the Constitution, and the Constitution, that's what it says. Now, if you don't like it, the council can make a different Constitution, make different rules, and then we'll abide by that. But I'm only suggesting, the officers are only suggesting, that is the Constitution.
Will be changed at the AGM in May.
So if you want to change the Constitution, you can have site visits for every meeting. But I'll make sure you turn up for it.
If I might, through you, Chairman, site visits do require additional time, quite a lot of resources. In the past, there were more site visits, but we didn't have access to such good technology then as we do now. Google Earth is fantastic. So I would, I think I appreciate that there's been a request this time, and it's more rare than it used to be, but I think we need to take into account that, it's one of many ways that we at our disposal consider.
Councillor Franklin?
I hear what Maria is saying, and I don't disagree, but it wasn't until I read this report and then went to site that I realised how bad that technology is. You say what you say, and in most cases it's true, but in this particular case, and in others probably, where we've taken it at face value, it's not the case. And you cannot get a spatial awareness of any application until you physically see it.
I mean, I would reiterate that officers visit every application site at least once during the determination process.
But that's not the council, that's not the committee. We are making a decision based on what they've said, but that's only their opinion based on what they've seen, but we haven't seen that.
Given the need, the absolute requirement as a planning authority that we need to get our applications done in time, I only put forward these counter-arguments because getting applications done on time is increasingly important to make sure we keep hold of our planning powers. So it's just the fact that site visits are the exception rather than the norm is, probably the way we need to continue.
That's fine, we don't go on many.
No.
Okay. There will be a site visit. The application is deferred.
Chairman, can I make a request that site visits are considered in the evenings or at times where some of us have to work for a living?
That's not so easy either. There are people that work in the evenings as well, and there are people that go to meetings in the evening.
I mean, normally it's kind of like 11 o'clock on a Friday.
We have officers that will come out on the site that work during the day. They don't get paid to come out.
Could I suggest it's probably either first thing or last thing rather than the middle of the thing?
Okay, yeah, that's not unreasonable. So you're saying the site visit, let's have it at 9:30 rather than 12 o'clock.
Or 4 o'clock in the evening or something like that.
I mean, we'll
that's not unreasonable.
Well, we'll do what we can, Chairman, but it's often subject to getting access to sites and officers being able to travel there and so on. So.
Okay. Very quick one, Councillor.
Also, may I suggest if you can go to the site visit, and if Mr. Councillor Frenchman said you have to see the site, you can always see the site without coming to the site visit to understand the topography.
But then you could be persuaded by people that live near there, which you shouldn't be, or be persuaded by the applicant, which you shouldn't be talking to the applicant. You shouldn't be talking to objectors.
Yeah, you don't talk, you just look.
Yeah, now would be my time to reiterate the protocol for dealing with planning matters. It's important that you don't do unaccompanied site visits, but there is absolutely no reason why you can't look at any site from the public highway.
That is what I wanted to say. Just not go into the site, but look.
Anyway, the application is deferred to next meeting, so it'll be determined in 3 weeks' time. Right, the next application is in 0426.
That was the application, I made a mistake, I will say in a moment. That is the application that I mentioned. I spoke to the applicant. I had a senior man and I said it's fit for the Thank you.
Yeah. You declared that anyway. That's fair enough. You're a goodie, Councillor.
Am I to understand that we're not allowed to speak to applicants before a planning application?
No.
I think so.
You very often get somebody in your own ward that may want you to look at it, but as long that is not unreasonable. If an applicant says, and you will say to them, I'm a member of that planning committee, I cannot express an opinion until I've heard everything. But generally, it's very unwise to go on a site visit on your own, especially if it's in somebody else's ward. Okay? Or it can be in your own with the wrong people. Right, Dad.
Thank you, Chairman. The proposal relates to a grade 2 listed building situated in Daventry Park. The dwelling itself is in a prominent location in the park and in the western elevation facing existing cricket ground. The application before us tonight proposes a 2-storey extension on the north elevation. We'll see from the report that history indicates that in 2003 permission was granted for a single-storey lean-to extension. This was subsequently replaced with a 2-storey 2-bay extension. The application now proposes to add a third 2-storey bay to create a lounge extension So it's a large family stroke kitchen extension at the ground floor, and to relocate the 6 bedrooms of the main house to create a bedroom on the first floor. The recent double bay when projecting north of the extension represents a substantial increase in the footprint and alters the simple linear form of the original dwelling to an L-shaped range. Officers acknowledge that the proposed extension for a tonight is of traditional form and is modest in size. Equally, it is no detrimental impact on neighbours nor the conservation area. However, issue for consideration is the cumulative impact of incremental small-scale changes to the architectural and historical significance of the building. Historic England advises that where significance has been compromised in the past, care needs to be taken to ensure that any additional changes will not further detract from that significance. Additional bay further complicates the form and obscures the birth proportion of the original fabric and the architectural features. It is considered that where there is less than substantial harm can be weighed against the public benefits. Officers acknowledge that the proposal will indeed enhance the quality of accommodation, but this is a private benefit rather than a public benefit. And accordingly, we do not consider that the benefit would outweigh the harms to the listed building. Consequently, the recommended application be refused. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. We have 2 speakers. Mr. Clark, Parish Council.
Thank you, Chairman. On behalf of Daventry Parish Council, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you tonight about this application for a 2-storey rear extension to Wickets Cottage. Regarding the 2 key policies, that is, saved local plan GN3 criteria E and policy BN5 of the Joint Force Strategy, which the case officer has referred to as the basis for the recommendation that the extension will result in cumulative harm to its designated heritage asset with no overriding public benefits. I'd like to put to you the following observations to underline the Parish Council's support for this application. Firstly, the setting. In our view, it is our view that the extension does not affect the setting in Boughton Park, nor the character and appearance of the park, and further does not detract from local distinctiveness and sense of place. The key aspects in the park are from the south, which is the predominant aspect, and the west. Both of these are unchanged and do not compromise the eye-catching view of Wickets from Boughton Hall or from the road which runs through the park. The views from the north and east are limited. In relation to the setting and sense of space and the southerly aspect, on the southerly aspect of Wickets Cottage, may I ask you to take into consideration the modern design of the houses on the east side as one enters the main entrance to the park from Boughton Village, which are relatively modern. And secondly, the scale and design. It's a modest further addition to the building, and its design and quality reflects that of the existing and is to a high standard. It is our view that the extension adds balance to the 2 gables already in place to the north, on the north wall, and we find it difficult to understand how an addition of a minor nature in relation to the whole will result in cumulative harm. We consider that in relation to the existing 2-storey extension on the north elevation, this less than substantial extension does not result in cumulative harm and adds balance to the northern aspect. That is why we're supporting this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Mrs. McInnes.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you to the committee for letting me speak. I would like to stress that we like this extension not to add value to our house, but to ensure that we can live there for many years to come. As committed owners, we provide security and long-term ownership. My husband's family has lived in Boughton Park for over half a century, and Wickets Cottage has been our home for over a decade. We love it and we care about it very deeply. It, the park and Boughton are very special places. My understanding of listed buildings is not that they should be frozen in time, but allowed to develop, and that alteration is all part of the building's history. Wickets Cottage has undergone many changes since it was built in the 18th century. It was built as one dwelling, it was converted to 2. It's now one dwelling. It's had various extensions, including the arch, to turn it into an eye-catcher. To us, all these changes are what gives it character. In 2009, this committee granted permission for us to replace an unsympathetic extension with the two gabled one you can see. Now, as then, we consulted with the parish council, neighbours, the Daventry Village Design Statement, and employed a highly experienced architect. It goes without saying that we would use sympathetic and suitable materials. When planning was granted in 2009, members of this committee and the Ancient Monuments Society commented that the extension added to our home's heritage as an eye-catcher. We believe that this application, with its thoughtful and high-quality design, further enhances this, as the third gable balances the other two. The Conservation Officer herself notes that harm to the building is minimal. The proposal increases the square footage by less than 10%, and as we've heard, it does not impede or obstruct anybody else's views. In hindsight, a wonderful thing, we should have anticipated the need for a third gable in 2009, as our family has expanded since then. Had we done so, I feel confident the scheme would have been passed as a whole, and I would ask you please to consider this point. The Conservation Officer talks about cumulative impact. Could I please assure the committee that there will be no more little Macanesses? 3 children is more than enough. Our architect started a dialogue with the Conservation Officer at the beginning of the year. We responded to her observations within 7 days and made significant changes to the plans, meaning many hours of work. Our aim has always been to create a workable and properly considered plan. This had included a small utility function adjacent to the family room, in line with how design and zone planning has developed in the last 15 years. We were sad that we had to give up what would have been a sympathetically designed but highly practical space. Given this and the other modifications that were made, we are most surprised that her advice is to refuse this revised application. We feel very strongly that our scheme represents excellent design and represents the building's heritage. I would please ask you to support our application so we can continue living in the house we love and remain close to our family. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Local member?
Thanks, Chair. I'm in two minds about this, but having spoken to the Parish Council and listening to the Chair's vehement support of this application, I'm minded to propose that we actually accept this, but I would like to hear what other members have to say before I make any proposal.
Okay. You might get another proposal made before you.
I might.
Yes, you might. Okay, Councillor Fraser and Councillor Oden.
Can I just ask a question, Chairman? We had 2 applications on this, listed buildings.
One's a listed building
Yeah.
one. Sorry, I should have said.
Yeah.
We're talking about both of them.
Thank you.
In one, and then we're voting on the 2 separately.
Yeah.
I do apologise. You're dead
That's
right.
it for now. That's all I want to say for now.
Right, members, your comments, please. Councillor Worthy, Councillor from Brixworth at the back.
Thank you, Chairman.
Yes, I haven't forgotten your name.
Chairman, that's
because I've got a picture of you here. Councillor Barrett.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I certainly wouldn't dispute that the planned extension is going to be to a high standard. I certainly wouldn't deny that at all. It appears to be quite well designed and an attractive building in its own right. But it's not minor. It's quite a substantial 2-storey extension. This is a listed building. And it is 2 stories with a degree of demolition involved to build that way. And as I said, it's listed and it's in a conservation area, and I think we have to look, as the Conservation Officer quite rightly said, towards the yardstick of judgment in this case, which is the public benefit of the development. And again, with all respect to the applicant, yes, it's to the family's benefit and the owner's benefit, but I'm struggling to see the public benefit of this extension, and that's why my agreement is in the balance at this point, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Barrett. Councillor Chancellor.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm afraid I agree with the officer's advice and the Conservation Officer's advice in particular. We often hear that the desired extension or alteration to a listed building is round the back and not many people can see it. I'm afraid that's not relevant when considering a heritage asset. It is clear to me that this gradual incremental change obscures the origins of the heritage asset, the listed building. There is no palpable public benefit from this, and therefore the advice is given by the Conservation Officer, which follows the advice in NPPF and other policies. I think the only sensible outcome for this is that we follow Officer's advice. I make that as a proposal, Chairman.
Is that for both of them or for the first one?
Yes, Chairman, to make it easier.
Okay. Do you have a seconder, first of all, for Officer's advice for both of them? Councillor Eden, you're seconding, but
yes, Chairman.
The proposal. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Any other members wish to contribute? You can indeed.
As well, please. I did go on a site visit when this first application came through. It was only looking at the pictures now that it's clicked in. It's the first time I've seen it since it was actually built. I think putting another extension on this is just one step too far, and I go along with Officer's advice.
Thank you. Councillor Patchett.
Yeah, I think that what's proposed looks really good, and I think that we shouldn't use our personal judgment of what it looks like to whether we should approve it or not. And I think as far as the public benefits concerned, I think it's something which I'll mind to write to the planning inspector and to the planning minister and have that removed from the NPPF or future planning rule, because it comes in the way of looking after heritage assets which need to move forward with the times and provide good homes for people who live in them and to a modern standard. So I think that we should be approving the change.
Thank you. Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Chair. I totally agree with Officer's advice for refusal, because I don't know if it says in the report, but unless I've missed it, of how many people actually reside in this property, but it looks of considerable size. I'm just been puzzled why they want such a huge extension. If we was talking about some old historic cottage, which had a very small lounge, perhaps very small kitchen, then you could argue there's reasons there, but I see this is quite a development anyway on its own. It's quite a size property, and I think to add more to it would alter the character of it substantially, and nobody would really gain for it, but perhaps the people who live there, Chair. So I would go along with Officer's advice.
Okay. Councillor Paul.
Thank you, Chairman. Having gone through it, having compared the two drawings, one with 2 gable ends, one with 3, and you're going up and down. The extension is not a modest extension, it is a substantial extension. I often find myself at loggerheads with my colleague behind me, the heritage champion. I absolutely concur with his submission this evening. The extension's probably square area is bigger than the original, and I would agree with Officer's advice. I would suggest, though, that it is not for us to determine how the dwelling is used. That's not a planning reason, but I would agree with Officers. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Randall.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I can fully sympathise with the family occupying the house, but at the end of the day, it's a listed building, and that is, we know what we need to follow, and we should follow the advice of what can be done and what can't be done on those listed buildings.
Thank you. Councillor Irving-Swift.
Yes, as you know, I live in a listed house. Now, if 300 years ago somebody would have had a planning committee, the house that is now 18th century will not exist, because it was a little thing and they put a huge extension at the front, and after they put an awful extension in the 1970s, and the house was listed with the extension. And when I spoke to Rachel before I was elected councillor, I could not destroy the horrors behind of 1970, and I had a problem to mask that horrid thing that was not at all for the public benefit, frankly. Whatever, to come back to that extension, if you look at the little creative art on the side, you might think, well, that doesn't go very well. It was a folly put on the side, and it's listed. So if we don't show any understanding, I think it's when the second part replaced the ugly building. I'm sure 2 at the time might not have been too big. I think we have to be minded that the people who propose this extension have taken a well-known architect, have taken some advice, and it's a question of opinion between our officer and some architects who are also very qualified in listed building. So I think for us to be sitting there and to pontificate, I feel very uneasy about it, knowing that the architect with the Georgian Society have been consulted. So that's all what I have to say. Thank you.
But that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
We're not professionals, and we do have to make the decision. Jamie, you need to come back.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chairman. Just want to remind members that we are merely custodians of this building. You have the advice for us tonight from your officers, and the advice is that previously there has been a substantial increase in the footprint of this building to accommodate the needs of the current owners. This was approved prior to the current NPPF and prior to our current what we call strategy development plan policies. The person before us tonight needs to be considered in accordance with those current policies, and the listed buildings officer and equally your planning officer has concurred that there would be harm. Now, for while where harm has been identified, that must be considered against what the public benefits of the proposal are. Your officer before tonight found there is no public benefit to this proposal, and therefore cannot recommend or support this proposal before you tonight. I think this needs to be borne in mind before members make each choice to determine this application.
Thank you, Chair. Right, we have a proposal. We're first of all dealing with 0426, that the application be refused as per officer's advice, which has been seconded. All those in agreement with that, please show. All those against?
Sorry, actually that was 6.
Yes, can we count again? All those in favour of the proposal, please show again.
Yes, it is 6.
That's definitely 6.
Yeah.
Right, those against?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10.
I thought it was going to be like that. I don't find this an easy one, actually, because I can see merits in both sides, and that's the difficulty sitting here. And nevertheless, I've got to make a decision. I will vote against the proposal. I will vote for the application. Okay?
Yeah.
This is not something something I very rarely do, but to my mind, as a pure layman, and I am a pure layman, I think the listed building has been well, it hasn't been improved with the existing extension anyway. Okay, this is not going to improve it either, but I don't think it makes it. Anyway, that's the decision. So the application, that proposal to refuse it has lost. So we now vote the other way, don't we?
Or we took the two applications together. What's your advice?
We've got to vote on the first
Well,
one.
it's just direct negative, so I think you can go straight on to the next one.
So it's the next one. So the application is approved for the first one that's on, without another vote.
Right.
So the application is approved. So going to the...
We need the reasons.
Less than substantial harm.
Local member, would you like
yes,
to provide that?
less than substantial harm. I know it's not a planning consideration, but the parish council was obviously purely for it. Also, it's not contrary to BN5 of the JCS.
Sean would like to come back. Can I come back on that then? I think that requires some clarification regarding whether or not there's less than substantial harm or significant harm to the building. Even when there's less than substantial harm, the public benefit has to be identified. It's only when there's no harm identified to the building, there's no need to weigh it against the public benefit. I'm trying to provide members of a clear steer here. But I think it's the members phrasing it in their own words.
Well, I think there's minimal harm to a heritage asset that will be conserved for future generations.
That doesn't exist.
We have decided.
Yes, we have decided.
Okay, you happy with that, Chan? When you are or not, that's it.
I can say that it won't go to appeal.
Right, now we've got to go to the second, the second one. Before we, the listed building one. The listed building one. Again, there's a proposal, the application.
Conditions as well with regard to materials and all that kind of standard stuff, which will
we'll do the listed building one, and then we'll do conditions for both, I think. Okay. Well, should it be approved? Right, we've got an application 0427. There's a proposal to refuse it, which has been seconded. All those in favour, please show. It should be the same as last time, I would have thought.
I think you need to clarify, Chairman, because the proposal is to approve.
To approve?
No, it's to refuse.
We have to refuse it first.
Yeah.
Our solicitor said
it was moved by councillors Chandler and Edel, I believe, that both be refused. That's what they did.
Yes, that's right, they did.
But that failed, so they've both been accepted.
No, well, you have to vote on each one.
We're voting on this separately. So, we've got a proposal that the application be refused. All those in favour, please show. 6. And all those against? Well, it would be silly to leave it so if we can't have refuse one and allow the other. So I vote against the proposal. So the application is approved.
Councillor Patchett made reference to materials.
Oh yes, that's what we're going to do. Yeah.
The previous developments or the previous extensions, albeit that I don't approve of them, were of a specific quality, and I would be keen for the new extension, and I don't have any doubt that it wouldn't be anything other than the same quality of the two previous extensions.
So you're proposing that we use the same materials as the previous extension?
Through you, Chair, there are some standard conditions we have for buildings, conditions, materials, calling conditions, joinery, that sort of thing. Members are happy, we'll put it together. Yeah.
Thank you.
We go against the Chandler, you wish to say something?
I wish to being disagree with this, but my understanding of the planning system, and I have explored this on many occasions with many senior planning lawyers as well as ministers, is that as far as heritage assets are concerned, harm is either substantial or less than substantial. There are no other grades recognised. unless a substantial harm, still requires a balance of public benefit to outweigh it, and I have seen none in this application. I am very concerned about this decision.
Well, I would entirely agree with Councillor Chandler on that. And in fact, I would say 90% plus of all heritage asset applications where harm is identified will, by definition of law, always be less than substantial, because you would have to be looking at something to the degree of a scheduled monument before you even enter the territory of substantial harm, which patently we're not here. We are where we are. A decision's been reached where public benefit has not been identified.
Okay, members?
It really brings back the point I was referring to earlier, that even if there's only less substantial harm or substantial harm, I think Councillor Pension was probably steering towards is that proposal would not result in any harm.
No, I never said that it's less than substantial harm, and I can't see that the public benefit argument, I think, is spurious in this instance.
That's the law.
So the law is
That's
wrong.
the law.
Yeah, well, laws no, but you've identified a public benefit allegedly, where I'm saying there isn't one.
No, we're not.
You said because you said there's no public benefit.
Just to clarify, the argument is if there's harm or substantial harm, then the only way to agree and a proposal to agree is if you can demonstrate that the public benefit outweighs the harm or substantial harm. So in order to approve the application and comply with the law, essentially the planning committee needs to say there is no harm. That is what the challenge is.
But then, if I was going to be really petty about it, I never proposed a refusal, the chairman did. Because he made the casting vote.
This is all a bit academic.
Yes, I made the casting vote, but I think let's say.
But on what basis did you make your casting vote?
Not for you to know.
No.
It's very rare that I will vote against an officer's view, certainly on the listed building. But in my silly little mind, I will tell you that I thought the building had been, let's say, significantly impacted by the extension that it had had a little while ago.
Yeah.
I don't think an additional extension in the similar vein to the one that's been put on, in 500 years' time, one will say that was built in Georgian times, that was added on in Elizabethan times, and you will see that it's added on. I mean, if you go to Hawthorne and see the wonderful listed building there, you can go through the parts of Hawthorne, but you can see what was added on. It was built in 1700, 1800, 1900 and 2000. Now this, if it had come in, to my view, if they come in for the straight away 3 extensions on the back, I would have gone no. If they'd gone 2, I would have gone no on a casting vote. But the fact that he got 2 there, and he wanted another one identical to it on the back, that was my reasoning.
You've articulated exactly what I was thinking, what I was trying to say, but I don't know how that's expressed in terms that you
If you
accept.
can put that into words, Joe.
That's no harm. No harm.
Right.
No harm.
Right.
Yeah.
But that was my reason. I'm sorry it didn't please some members, but sometimes you're here to make a decision and that's it.
I agree with you, Chairman.
Thank you. The application is approved. The next application is Woodford Commemories 04134.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a site in the open countryside which has an established residential use. The building has been involved in a fire which has damaged pretty much beyond economical repair. There is an application this is an application to replace the dwelling. It is not proposed on the same footprint but it's closer to the road. It is noted that the replacement dwellings are normally allowed if they're on their same footprint and bulk and size. The proposed development is larger and closer to the road. The proposal is, however, more akin to what was there previously, to the character of the locality. The design is better than the current one on the site. We have got some pictures of what it was like before the fire. Therefore, in this particular case, even though it's not on the same footprint, the proposal is considered to be acceptable and is therefore recommended for approval, subject to condition 4 to be altered to state unless otherwise agreed in writing by the local planning authority at the end.
Yes,
that's
before the fire.
This is the one. This is the residential property before the fire.
Thank you. Councillor Patchett, your local member.
Well, I mean, members personally, I don't necessarily have a problem with this, and the new proposed building will be a damn sight better than what was there before. The only thing that does slightly concern me with regards to it is that in policy terms it's not on the existing footprint and it's not what was there at the beginning, and so it does conflict with several planning policies and the MPPF, but I'll wait to see what other members have got to say about it, really, Chairman, because
Catherine, you...
Yeah, just for you, Chairman, just to be clear, sort of policy HS25 says, again, similar to sort of the limited development, it's normally, so there is some scope for you to allow replacement dwellings which aren't on the same footprint. If you consider potentially where the house was sited before its fire damage, it's set back further in the site. Whereas also this one is set close to the road, so potentially you can argue there's potentially more surveillance for the yard area. So potentially that's also a sort of an issue. Maybe consider, the building is pretty much circled, or where sort of it's being circled at the moment. So if you consider it's set back there, whereas the new house is further to the front. So it gives a bit more surveillance, potentially to stop any unwanted visitors as well. So in a sense, even though it's strictly not on the same footprint, it's not that much bigger either. I think sort of the one which is burnt down is about 130 square metres, whereas this one is 150 square metres. So it's not hugely 15%. Not hugely different.
It was just a matter of setting the precedent really for other applications that maybe come along in the future where we've got this set of policies that say, look, this is what you've got to do, this is how you deal with this kind of situation. And we're saying, well, because it's been fire damage, this is an improvement, well, we're going to ignore that. And that just worries me slightly, as I say, I've no real particular problem with it other than that. It's just
again, each planning application is taken on its own merits. Yes, we've refused replacement dwellings on different locations before, and yet we've allowed them on different locations. It depends on sort of the circumstances surrounding.
Yeah, thank you.
I think, Chairman, as Catherine said, it very much depends on the circumstances. In this particular case, what members have to question is what is the harm as a result of this proposal, as opposed to what was there. What is there?
Thank you, John. Councillor Swift and Councillor French.
Just for my benefit, because it's not on the same footprint and so on, was the arson a genuine arson or was it that? Because if not, we can open all the kind of work.
It's a kitchen fire.
No, I don't know, to be honest.
You don't know.
For us tonight.
We don't know the answer, and it's not nice.
No, it's not relevant, but it just... It was
we're not here to guess why. Councillor Frenchman.
Yes, I can't see much wrong. I do share some of Councillor Patchett's concerns, but guess that as Catherine said, or the officer said, everything is judged on its merits. So I would like to propose that we approve officer's advice But I would like to make one small point, and I don't know if it was just me, but the plans that were actually on the planning portal were very poor and hard to read and were not this.
Okay.
And I had very great difficulty actually making head or sense of them in terms of their clarity. They were like scanned documents or something, and they weren't nothing like the ones that you put up here.
Because these are the ones which should be on the planning board.
Well, then I said it might be me, but I didn't find any. Didn't find these.
No, so we.
But if any member finds it in future, just.
They don't know till you see them here.
Right, we have a proposal that the application be approved. Do you have a second? Councillor Chandler. Right, I'll come back to you in a second, Councillor Chandler. Councillor Randall.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, the only thing I was looking at is obviously, reading through it, there was a breach of planning control. It was a single-storey building, and actually now it's going to a 2-storey, 6-bedroom dwelling. So to me, that's substantial change, on what it was before, and the same whether we're setting some sort of precedence, I don't know.
If I might just to clear, it was previously converted from farm buildings. It was a permitted development change. It was never designed to be a house. So that's the design I've got to do now. That was the original design of the building, and this is a new building. And that's what it looked like before the fire.
Yeah, but that's.
It's just. I think that's what we're dealing with.
I'll come back to you then, Councillor Chapley. You seconded the proposal.
Yes, I'm happy to second it, Chair, and I think that this proposal is actually a public benefit because it improves the site.
That's an understatement, Councillor Chapley, it does indeed.
We'd like to improve our area.
Although we all like our home, and that's it. Okay, we have a proposal the application be approved, which has been seconded. All those in favour, please show.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10.
Those against? 1. The application is approved. The last one is 0457 in Staverton.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an application for the conversion and alterations to the existing outbuildings at the stables in Staverton, trying to separate residential property. The roof will be replaced, and the glass link is also proposed with alterations for a building to link the 2 buildings together, which you can see from photos. The property is not listed, but it's within the conservation area of Staverton. Glimpses of the inner courtyard can be had from the main road, which is Manor Road. The glass link will be reviewed within these glimpses. However, considering the distance from the road, the impact is considered not so detrimental enough to warrant refusal. The proposal is considered to preserve the character and appearance of the conservation area. The proposal will not have an adverse impact on the residential amenities of the adjoining neighbours, and members' attention is drawn to late representations. The application is therefore recommended for approval. The late representations relate to a condition. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Catherine. We have 2 speakers. Mr. Gibson, who's against the application.
Good evening. I live literally across the road from this application site. My basic objection to the application is that in my view, and more importantly, in the view of the Parish Council and the Daventry District Council's Conservation Officer, there would be an adverse impact in the neighbourhood if the application was successful, noting particularly that it is a conservation area. In the essence, the proposal is for an ultra-modern structure of a 4-bedroom house to be built, i.e. the link building, along the northern side of the stables yard. As the yard, the stables, the house is called the stables. There will be a series of bedroom suites opening onto a glazed corridor, totally inappropriate to the surrounding buildings. I and other village objectors support the Parish Council's objection. Like me, the main feature to which there is objection is the vast glazed corridor in the linked building. 1960 plate glass areas don't easily fit into a 200-year-old property. I would like to underline some points from the Conservation Officer's report. He notes that the whole emphasis is for a rebuilding rather than repair and reuse of the existing traditional building. He is concerned over the proposed removal and replacement of roof structures, since he wishes to see the current undulations of the carport and stables retained, noting the undulations give the building character which contributes to the setting and special character of this corner of the village. He has a proposal for a roof structure which would be more appropriate and would help visually link the buildings through incorporating the same materials and form rather than currently completely contrasting proposal. He concludes that the present proposal, quote, would have a negative impact on the character of the building group and hence does not support the proposal. I find it difficult to accept the statement in the report, that is from the officer, I take it, and I quote, "The proposal will not harm the character of the surrounding conservation area and the existing buildings." The arguments to support this statement are difficult to follow, and in one part there seems to be a suggestion that if the glazed corridor is 22 metres from the highway, it doesn't feature in the assessment of the harm of the area. A fact not mentioned in the report, but of particular concern to me and near neighbours, is that the large amount of glass in the proposal is of course beneficial to letting light into the new building, but that glazed area will let light out. Light contamination would be the result. I do feel the report is biased towards minimising the impact of new materials and structures. There seems to be scant regard to what a conservation area means to residents.
Could you sum up that, please, sir?
Some development for sure, but not using them. I just would like I would hope the committee would not approve this application.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Golding, Parish Council.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councillors. The Parish Council's objections are simply in support and for the support and protection of the conservation area. Any materials for new build, extensions and alterations are to be in keeping with the locality. This is also repeated in their village design statement, albeit it is currently submitted to this council in draft form. In particular, we have concern for the glass roof, the glass facade, which runs along the full length of the southern elevation and part of the eastern elevation of the internal courtyard, such as to be highly visible from the street and properties opposite. The roof and facade are glass plate. It would be a glazed unit, I'm sure, but the plate would probably be on the outer leaf where it would be laminated glass. It runs from top to bottom and end to end and is only broken by very occasional slender joining strips. We consider this to be futuristic in its appearance and totally out of keeping with this 17th century house and its relatively unspoilt outbuildings. In the architect's presentation attached to the application, item 8.1, he says, "The style of the new element is deliberately contemporary to contrast with the older traditional construction, and this is considered to be contemporary too, and therefore in keeping with the style of the existing outbuildings." I must admit I have some difficulty following that. It seems to be contradictory. But in any event, the Stavern Parish Council would disagree. And by reference to the Planning Officer's report, so does your own Conservation Officer. We, the Stavern Parish Council, would therefore, join with your Conservation Officer, ask you to again address these concerns before you make any irreversible decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Patchett.
Yeah, I suppose really one thing, kind of one or two words sums up this, it could do better. Really, I mean, I think that the Parish Council do have a point as do the neighbours. I'll have a listen to what other members think, but I think that the harm is really too much, and for once I agree with the conservation officer. So I'll give you the members for the moment to come back, James, if I might.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Ridgway.
Yes, I've been looking on Google Earth, and it's a bit dilapidated at the moment, so you can think that anything could improve the state of the building and preserve the state of the building. But I find it very difficult to understand the drawing in a way that you don't see how, because it's not three-dimensional, and it looks a bit messy as far as I'm concerned too. It's a bit of lot of roof, different form of roof, and I find the design not design enough to be pleasing for modern design, but because of that, it's very unpleasing of the way it sits with an old building. So that is my view, but that is a design view, and maybe other members might disagree with that view.
Thank you. Councillor Frenchman?
Yes, it's a difficult one, and we've seen many applications before this committee where people have attempted to weave new design into old buildings. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. My opinion here is that it doesn't quite hit the mark, as Councillor Patchett has said. It's not sympathetic in any way, shape or form to the existing conservation area. The light pollution that the parish councillor chairman mentioned, I think, is a major issue. And I'd have thought there'd be some privacy issues as well, bearing in mind it's a glass corridor fronting onto some bedrooms that don't appear to all have bathrooms, so I presume people will be in and out in their pyjamas. Not that that's a planning issue, but you know, some people might find that an issue. Stop it. Some of us don't wear pyjamas. No. So it's a difficult one, but I think I'm marginally in favour of proposing a refusal of this particular application on the grounds that could do better. Which I haven't quite got to the bottom of what that might be yet. But
You're
it's
not making a proposal yet.
No, I shall just, like Councillor Patchett, just wait to see if there's general support for that view.
Okay, Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I think there's certainly, in my opinion, would be some harm here. It may be less than substantial. So I think it would affect the setting of a listed building, and also the conservation area itself, by nature of the glass material that's being used. Yes, it is.
No, it's not. It's in a conservation area.
Yes, next to the... Yes, we'll take the character of the great listed building.
You could, in fact, if you want, if you feel that the proposal's half right but half wrong and it could be better, is an indication of what you're saying. You could defer the thing, go back to the applicant and say you want something better.
Really, Chairman, it seems from members' comments tonight the issues are not so much centred around the scale of the proposal, but the materials of which should be proposed. I'm hoping the applicant is with us tonight and has heard what members have said. Like I said, it's more to do with the materials and the proportion of materials, which is glazing, which is raised the concern. So in respect to this application, I feel that if the applicant has heard members correctly, there may be some room to amend the current application to increase a greater proportion of brick and stone and clay tiles on the application.
It's a design.
Councillor Robinson, next.
I was only going to ask something, but that meant that we could deal with this with conditions rather than refusing.
No, it should have to be another application.
So I feel that in this particular case, separate amending plans will be required if it's to address the concerns which have been raised by members tonight. As I said, the majority of the concerns seem centred on the materials and the quantity of glazing which is used rather than the actual scale of the proposal itself.
Okay. Before we go on, is the applicant here? Well, I'm going to ask you a question. We don't normally do this. You can see, by the way, the councillors are making comments. They don't like the design of what you're doing. If we defer it and give it back to you, are you willing to consider a different design that's more sympathetic to a conservation area?
Yes, sir.
Right, okay. Yes. You've got the answer, members.
Well, in that case,
over to you, Councillor.
Thank you, Chairman. I agree with the Conservation Officer's observations that this is an inappropriate development for this setting. I particularly actually rue the loss of the wavy roof. People might think that's a jokey item, but it is part of the character. But I also wanted to point out, that drawing's gone.
Oh, sorry.
On this drawing, to spoil Councillor Frenchman's fun, each of those 3 bedrooms has an ensuite.
Has it? Okay. I couldn't work it out. I see now, yeah.
Yes, they all have.
Oh, dear.
Councillor Mash, you wish to come back as a local member?
Yeah, in light of members' comments and officers' comments as well, I think that it would be a good idea to propose that we defer the application for a rebate, and that.
Defer with a request for revised plans.
Okay, yeah, request for revised plans. Councillor Swift, are you seconding that proposal?
Yes, and could I say, because the parish and the neighbours disagree, so maybe it's also a time for the applicant to discuss with the parish, because I'm sure if the plan are more sympathetic with the building, the parish will not make some comment, and therefore it will not come back in front of our committee, if that is the case.
I think what the members are saying is they want it to look more like part of the conservation area than something futuristic. Is that and more in keeping with what is there already? Is that that's what you're saying as a committee?
Yeah, we don't have a problem. Well, I don't have a problem with it actually being developed. It's just the way.
Okay, Councillor Paul, you want to say something?
I'm assuming then that we have no argument about the scale and the mass, and what we're talking about is purely some design elements within the conservation area.
I think that's what this committee is broadly talking about.
And the officers would work together. Although I'm looking out the window at some buildings that were on the edge of a conservation area which didn't quite tick the boxes but got approved. However,
it happens, Councillor Paul. And we do some of them sometimes. You can't do those. Okay, so the application then is deferred, and you're all happy with that? Oh, we've got to put it to a vote. It's been proposed and seconded. All those in favour, please show. That's unanimous. Yeah, okay. So the application will be deferred, hopefully just to the next meeting, but it might be a following meeting. It might take a while to draw plans on.
Well, that's it.
Right, that concludes the meeting then.